Part 17. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 161. My shoulders seemed to be pressing down on a huge mountain, which was extremely heavy. My originally straight waist also bent down due to the unbearable load, and my legs trembled constantly, like sifting through chaff. How is this going? Just when I was wondering, there was a noise from Ruoheng's side. I turned to look at Ruoheng and his group, and what I saw in front of me shocked me. The big locust tree is located in the center of the village, and all the alleys in the village lead to it. But now, countless paper figures are swarming towards the big locust tree. These paper figures have faces as pale as marble, numb expressions, gray eyes, and rigid limbs. They walk like clockwork puppets, with stiff and uncoordinated movements. Ruoheng looked at me hurriedly and shouted anxiously, "Lu Su, how much longer do you need?" I tried to take steps, but the weight on my shoulders prevented me from moving forward at all. I don't know either. Ruoheng stamped her feet anxiously and said to me, "You can go ahead and do it. I'll buy you some time." After saying that, Ruoheng turned around and looked at the countless paper figures. She took a deep breath and said to Wu 11, "You guys stand back and I'll attract their attention." Wu 11, wearing a devil mask, nodded. Ruoheng untied the fiery red silk satin around her waist, stretched out her right hand, gently twisted the satin, and made an orchid finger gesture with her left hand. Ruoheng's red lips opened slightly, and she made a melodious voice. Accompanied by her dramatic voice, Ruoheng spins around in circles and performs various opera movements, especially her pair of red and phoenix eyes, which are smart and expressive. The paper man's attention was successfully attracted by Ruoheng. Ruoheng once said that when the play begins, people from all directions come to listen. 1 is human, 7 are ghosts, 3 are ghosts, and 4 are gods. And Ruoheng's ghost show can naturally attract the attention of ghosts and gods. This is probably the essence of ghost drama. Ruoheng waved the fiery red satin in her hand, which was so beautiful. I saw Ruoheng attracting the paper man's attention and quickly walked forward. After just 3 steps, I was already sweating profusely. This is not the way to go. If Heng's play ends, I'm afraid I won't be able to walk even 10 steps. Why this happens, I don't know. I took a deep breath and activated the power of the ghost seal. A cold air spread throughout my body, and the official seal of the underworld in my palm felt slightly hot. The weight on my shoulders actually lightened a bit. I was overjoyed and took another step forward. This time it was much easier than before. As long as I walk around the big locust tree 5 times, I can open the door of the ancient tomb, and then I can escape from these paper figures. The power of the ghost seal is huge, but I can't bring it to its extreme. However, it should be enough to deal with the current situation. I continued walking around the big locust tree, every step was so strenuous. Soon, I walked around the big locust tree 4 times, and Ruoheng's singing voice still lingered in my ears. I can already tell that the opera has come to an end. I have to speed up, otherwise, I will definitely be attacked by the paper man. When I walked around the front of the big locust tree and came to the side of the locust tree, a figure suddenly caught my eye. My steps hesitated, and the outline of the figure seemed a bit familiar, as if I had seen it somewhere before. The high-hanging moonlight was blocked by dark clouds, and the surrounding area instantly fell into infinite darkness. Tap tap tap. The sound of footsteps sounded, and my expression condensed. I held the seal of the 9 layers of thunder in my right hand and concentrated on judging the direction of the footsteps. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. Suddenly, a strong wind roared behind me, and I turned around suddenly. I silently recited the 9 layers of thunder technique in my heart. Thunder and lightning flashed in my hand, and I slapped a palm behind me. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 162. The thunder and lightning in my hand flashed, dispersing the rich blackness. Under the light of the thunder and lightning, I could clearly see the person behind me. Mr. Pan. I hit him firmly on the shoulder. The thunderbolt exploded in his shoulder in an instant. Strangely, Mr. Pan's shoulder smelled of burning. This smell was not the smell of burning human flesh, but the smell of burning paper. At the same time, the dark clouds dissipated and the moonlight poured down again, shining impartially on Mr. Pan. Mr. Pan's face was extremely gloomy, and his eyes were full of vicious greed. When I saw Mr. Pan's appearance at this time, I broke out in a cold sweat. The 6 words human being, ghost, and ghost are perfect to describe Mr. Pan. The right side of Mr. Pan's body is made of flesh, while the left side is made of paper. The paper and the flesh are perfectly integrated and not abrupt. It gives the impression that Mr. Pan's flesh and blood is turning into white paper, which is very strange. Mr. Pan grinned and said, "Lusu, I can't believe it. You have grown so quickly in such a short period of time." I held the 9-layer Thunder Jew seal in my hand, raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth, and replied, "No one will stop moving forward, but you have turned into such a ghost in a short period of time." This sentence stung Mr. Pan's pain, and his expression turned sinister and vicious, but as if he had thought of something, he burst out laughing at me. "Ha ha ha. That's right. I am neither human nor ghost now, but after tonight, I will be reborn in Nirvana. In your body. Continue to survive." I looked at Mr. Pan coldly and said nothing. Mr. Pan pressed forward step by step, and I retreated step by step. Now we have to find a way to open the door to the ancient tomb, and then think of a way to deal with Mr. Pan. But just as I was retreating and thinking about countermeasures, suddenly a dull footstep sounded behind me. The footsteps are so light that if you don't listen carefully, you will never hear them. I whipped out Jingxiao and pointed my sword behind my back. The man behind him stopped walking and stood there stunned. When I saw who it was, a sneer appeared on my lips. The person who came was none other than a painted ghost disguised as my second uncle. When the painted skin ghost saw that I had found him, he quickly said, "Good nephew. Second uncle is here to help you deal with him. Hurry up and open the door to the tomb." As soon as I finished speaking, painted skin ghost came to me and confronted Mr. Pan. "You killed my relatives, and now you want to touch my nephew. I will make you pay the price today." Painted skin ghost's voice was filled with anger. He took a step forward, stretched out his ghost claws and swung forward violently. However, painted skin ghost's movements stalled in the air, and he turned to attack me. He was extremely fast, but I was even faster. Poof! Before painted skin ghost could react, he was pierced through the chest by Jingxiao. He looked at me with shock in his eyes, and the disguise on his body began to dissipate, and he turned into the ugly painted ghost with green face and fangs again. How did you know?" I sneered. "How do I know? If I'm to blame, it's your poor disguise." I didn't dare to neglect, and while holding the sword in my right hand, I also made the seal of the 9 layers of Thunder Jew. A bolt of thunder and lightning spread from my hand and climbed up the rock along the Jingxiao sword. In an instant, Jingxiao was entangled in thunder and lightning. I was overjoyed that the 9 layers of Thunder Jew could indeed be used in conjunction with Jingxiao. All the power of the first level Lei Ju was gathered in Jingxiao. What surprised me even more was that Jingxiao was able to store the power of Lei Ju so that it would not pass too quickly. Ah! The painted skin ghost is suffering from the heart-burning pain of being struck by lightning. I gripped the hilt of the sword tightly and used all my strength to lift it upwards. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and I chopped the painted skin ghost's entire body from the chest open. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 163. The miserable scream of the painted skin ghost suddenly stopped. His whole body collapsed to the ground. His upper body had been split in half by me, but his lower body was still tightly connected. The scarlet blood stained the ground, which looked extremely shocking. His parted mouth wriggled wildly, making a strange scream that penetrated people, and a hoarse voice came from his broken mouth. "It hurts me to death. It hurts me to death. Lucio, you are really difficult to deal with." Seeing that painted skin ghost could still speak, I took a step forward and wanted to give him another blow. But what I didn't expect was that painted skin ghost actually stood up, dragged his upper body that had been severed by me, and ran away wildly. How to describe painted skin ghost's appearance at this time? It's like a peeled banana. The severed upper body of the painted skin ghost was hanging on both sides of the lower body, and it was floating up and down as it fled, looking bloody and terrifying. Not being able to kill the painted skin ghost with one strike was also what I expected. You know, the first time I faced painted skin ghost, I couldn't even penetrate his skin. Seeing the painted skin ghost running away, I was about to catch up, but was blocked by Mr. Penn. "Boy, you really exceeded my expectations, but what can you do even if you know all this? You still can't escape." Mr. Penn looked like he was sure of victory. I looked at Mr. Penn and asked, "If I guess correctly, everything here is your fault." Mr. Penn pressed forward step by step, and I backed away step by step. He walked in a strange way. The right half of the body is very sensitive, but the movements of the left half of the paper-bound body are a bit stiff. It's like having a stroke on half of your body. Yes and no. The village itself exists, I just use it. I glanced at the big locust tree next to me with my peripheral vision. I still had a few steps to go before I could complete the last lap. I continued to ask, "Are you the tomb keeper?" Mr. Penn was stunned, his eyes full of surprise, and exclaimed, "How did you know?" Seeing that Mr. Penn's attention was attracted to me, I quickly explained, "This village is a village of tomb keepers, and both people and objects in this village are made of paper, and you are now evolving from a human to a paper people." I stated my analysis in a nutshell. Mr. Penn's eyes became more and more surprised. He took a breath and said, "Boy, you are very smart, you can actually analyze this." I grabbed his words and continued, "Because you are going to become a paper man now, so you don't hesitate to reveal to me the ancient tomb that you have guarded for generations, and then use this to let Qing Yang Xing return to the palace, take the opportunity to seize the soul, and use my body continues to live." I have to say that Mr. Pan's layout is very large and meticulous. The only omission is painted skin ghost. After hearing what I said, Mr. Pan's expression became a little cold, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Boy, you are in danger. I must kill you here. If not, there will be endless trouble." Having said that, Mr. Pan's speed increased, and his body was completely controlled by his right body. My expression condensed, I quickly turned around and stepped forward. The feeling of back pressure still existed, but it was much weakened by the power of the ghost seal. I gritted my teeth and moved forward with all my strength. There is one last step, the last lap is over. When I took the last step, the wind roared behind me, and Mr. Penn was already behind me. After the last lap, the feeling of being pressed disappeared completely. At the critical moment, I rolled away to the side, and Mr. Penn's attack brushed past my body. The moment I landed, a huge sound sounded from inside the big locust tree. Under the moonlight, the big locust tree trembled crazily, and its leaves poured down like heavy snow. The body of the big locust tree slowly collapsed, and a huge square entrance came into view. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 164. The entrance appeared out of thin air, dark wind rushed out from the square entrance, and the surrounding temperature instantly dropped a few points. The movement here also attracted the attention of Wu 11 and others. Ruo Hung also stopped singing. She stroked her chest and gasped violently. The paper figure villagers have not yet reacted, and each of them is still stunned in place, as if they are reminiscing about the opera just now. Wu 11 yelled. "Brothers, let's go." The coffin bearers quickly lifted the two coffins and walked towards me. Mr. Pan looked at me coldly. He slowly stretched out his hand and touched his pocket. When he took his hand out of his pocket, I was stunned for a moment and saw a bunch of small paper-cut figures in his hand. The little figures are not big. They are cut out of red paper. They are about 2 or 3 centimeters long. There are strange talismans drawn on them. He waved his hand and threw the little paper man in his hand. Mr. Pan muttered in his mouth, not knowing what magic formula he was reciting. Countless little paper-cut figures actually floated in the air. My expression condensed, I held Jingxiao in my hand, and silently recited the 9 levels of Thunder Ju in my heart. The first level of Thunder Ju gathered in my hand and spread to the Jingxiao sword body. I slashed at Mr. Pan with my sword. Just when Jingxiao was about to touch Mr. Pan's body, a small paper man suddenly stood in front of him. Thunder and lightning exploded, and the little paper man was directly chopped into ashes. It was this missed shot that gave Mr. Pan the opportunity to operate. Countless paper-cut figures flew towards the paper-cut villagers. The blood-red paper-cut figure submerged into the body of the paper-cut villager. A red light suddenly appeared, and the paper-cut villager instantly resumed action. The originally slow movements of the paper villagers suddenly became extremely fast and furious. They seemed to have their own intelligence. This is trouble. Mr. Pan gave me a weird smile, and said to me, "Lu Su, you must keep this gift." After that, he wanted to hide his figure in the darkness. How could I let him escape? I rushed forward with a lunge, raised the Jingxiao in my hand, and struck hard at Mr. Pan. The strong wind was howling, and Mr. Pan felt the danger. He quickly turned sideways, but because half of his body was made of paper, it was difficult to move, and he was severely pierced by my sword. What is surprising is that when Jingxiao passed through Mr. Pan's paper-tied left shoulder, scarlet blood actually flowed. From this we can judge that Mr. Pan's body is actively turning into a paper man, rather than passively. Mr. Pan let out a miserable howl and turned his head sharply, his eyes filled with anger. "You crazy person." I could tell from Mr. Pan's expression that he didn't expect that I would suddenly take action. Mr. Pan slapped me with a palm, and I retreated repeatedly. It was precisely because of my retreating action that the shock escaped from Mr. Pan's shoulders. I wanted to attack again, but Mr. Pan took out small red paper figures from his pocket. He held the small paper figures in his right hand and recited the law very fast. The red paper figure flew up out of thin air, and then grew in size at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the whole body exuded a faint blood light. Mr. Pan shouted loudly, and the paper man rushed towards me. The paper man exudes an ominous aura, giving people a feeling of extreme danger. Mr. Pan gave me a dirty look, then turned around and ran away. I wanted to catch up again, but the way was blocked by the bloody paper man. The bloody paper man was a flat surface, 1 meter 80 in length. It stretched out its hand, put its right hand deep into its mouth, and then pulled out a paper knife from its mouth. The paper knife was weak, like a whip. The paper man waved the paper knife in his hand and struck me. I used Jingxiao to resist, but something strange happened. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 165. The originally weak paper knife straightened up in an instant and became extremely hard. The Jingxiao and the paper knife collided together, and the bloody paper man's force was so powerful that it made my jaw go numb. Thunder Ju has no effect on the paper man. What kind of existence is this guy? The bloody paper man is extremely fast, and it was a bit difficult for me to fight against it. Just when I was in a stalemate with the paper man, Wu 11's broken voice shouted loudly, "Lu Su, think of a way. If you don't think of a way, we will all die here." I looked at Wu 11 and others and found that they had been surrounded by 3 layers of paper figure villagers, and they were unable to break through. Holy crap! These paper figures can't be beaten. Wu 11 shouted in a loud voice. Immediately afterwards, Ruo Hung's dissatisfied voice was heard. "You are stupid. Burn with fire." After hearing the conversation between the two people, I was very anxious and wanted to go forward to help, but I couldn't get away. Wu 11's voice came again. "No. Ordinary fire has no effect at all. I have to think of some ways. If I continue to waste it, the consequences will be disastrous." "Fire." I was slightly startled. "There is a solution." I took out the Luo talisman that Su Tianxian had given me in advance from my pocket. I originally planned to use this talisman to deal with those rats and snakes. But it made me endure it. Because that situation is not the best time. After all, Mr. Pan has not appeared yet. It's different now. I flashed my figure and ran towards Wu 11 and others. The bloody paper man also attracted my attention and chased me. I held the Luo talisman and waved it in the air. I held the Jingxiao and directly pierced it. I silently chanted the method to activate the Luo talisman in my heart. With a whir, the Luo talisman burned instantly, and the hot flames instantly scared away all the paper figures with infinite deterrence. Jingxiao is made of century-old peachwood and tempered by thunder. It is a sacred object in itself, and the sun flame like Li Huo cannot cause any damage to it. I quickly came to the front of everyone. When the paper figures saw the burning Luo talisman, they all retreated quickly like a cat seeing a mouse. But they did not move away, they still kept a distance from us and stared at us. Their mouths were slightly open and they made a raw, hoarse sound. "Everyone who enters the tomb will die. Everyone will die." At first it was just a paper figure, followed by the second and the third, just like a stone falling into the calm water, causing ripples, layer after layer, one after another. "Everyone will die. Everyone will die." I looked at these paper figures with a serious expression, and said to Wu 11 and others, "The entrance to the tomb is behind the big locust tree. You go first, and I will stop you." Wu 11 and others nodded, and I rushed directly into the crowd. With a frightening wave in my hand, I hit a paper man directly, and then I shouted loudly, "Burn!" The Luo talisman, which was penetrated by Jingxiao, instantly burst into flames, spreading from the sword body to the tip, and finally rushed into the pile of paper figures like a fire dragon. Everywhere I passed, there were fires burning. The hot flames made me feel as if I was in a furnace. It was so hot and my heart was burning. The Luo talisman was painted by Su Tianxian himself, and its power is visible to the naked eye. Countless paper figures were swallowed up by the fire, and they didn't even have time to scream. However, a very outrageous thing happened before me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 166. That is, the power of the Luo talisman is simply too great. These paper villagers were running around like crazy, setting fire to wherever they passed. Because this village is made of paper, ordinary fire can't do anything, but Luo is different. The fire shot straight into the sky, illuminating the entire night sky. Through the sea of fire, I saw that Wu 11 and others had arrived behind the big locust tree. Seeing this, I breathed a long sigh of relief. But there is another problem before me, that is, how should I escape? I looked around, and everything I saw was red. I took a deep breath, held my breath and rushed towards the sea of fire. The fire burned all over my body, burning every inch of my skin, and my clothes were instantly ignited. I was burned by flames when I was a child, and I still remember that time vividly. But this time Lihuo was more painful than the last time. Although I held my breath, the smell of burning paper still penetrated my nose. The scorching flames kept burning my eyes, making them dry and painful, and my tears couldn't stop flowing down. I tried my best and ran with all my strength. Soon, I rushed out of the sea of fire, and a cool breeze hit me, dispelling the burning sensation in my body. But the flames on my clothes continued to burn. I fell to the ground and rolled wildly, trying to extinguish the flames on my body. At this moment, I heard a scream. Ha! The next moment, I felt like I was being whipped hard by something striped. I raised my head and saw Ruohong waving a long whip, hitting me again and again. Ruohong! You Biao! How do you put out the fire with a whip? Ruohong was startled for a moment, then subconsciously stuck out her tongue and said, "Sorry, I was too anxious." She put away the whip, then stretched out her slender hands to extinguish the flames on my body. In addition, she also picked up the dirt from the ground and threw it on me. While we were struggling to put out the fire, Wu 11's broken voice sounded in my ears. "You, Grandpa Wu, are here too." I saw Wu 11 holding a wooden stick and hitting me. I quickly stood up, waved my hands repeatedly, and said, "No, no, no. The fire is out." Wu 11 paused, put away the stick, and said, "It was destroyed pretty quickly." The corners of my mouth twitched slightly. How could these two people be more powerful than the other? I don't seem to have any grudge against them, right? I turned around and glanced at the sea of fire behind me, and instantly looked shocked. The sea of fire spread extremely quickly and was about to reach behind me. "Let's go." After that, the three of us ran towards the big locust tree. Entering the dark entrance, the burning sensation disappeared instantly, replaced by a cold wind. I leaned against the cave wall and gasped for air. Prick, prick, prick. The sound of burning fire came from outside. I frowned. Was the big locust tree burned? Wu 11 lit the oil lamp, and there was some light in the dark environment. "It's not a good time to stay here. Let's leave quickly," I said to everyone. Everyone nodded. The entryway is a large space and the walls on both sides are also made of stone bricks. The passage is downward as a whole, so walking is not that strenuous. The coffin bearers carry two coffins one after the other, leaving a lot of space on both sides. The further down you go, the lower the temperature becomes and the colder it gets. Ruohong looked at my burned and tattered clothes, hesitated, and said to Wu 11, "You take off your coat and let Lu Su wear it." Wu 11 was stunned, the beautiful eyes under the grimace mask were full of doubts. "Why? I'm still cold." Ruohong raised her fist, Wu 11 sighed, could only take off his coat, and handed it to me reluctantly. I said thank you and put it on. Xia 11 asked with concern, "Lu Su, are you okay?" I shook my head and said, "It's okay." While a few of us were talking, the passage suddenly opened up, and a wide space came into view. Wu 11 raised the oil lamp in his hand and illuminated the environment in front of him. In the dim light, I suddenly noticed the top of the cave wall. Wait, what is that? Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 167. In the darkness, a human silhouette caught my eye. Wu 11, give me the oil lamp. I took the oil lamp from Wu 11's hand, took a step forward, and raised the oil lamp above my head. The weak light dispelled a little of the darkness. When I saw what was in front of me clearly, I was stunned in place. I read that right, that was indeed a person. Just a little boy. A little boy was suspended by the cave wall. He looked about 4 or 5 years old, wearing a red belly band and braided to the sky. If it weren't for her pale skin and livid complexion, she would be very cute. Ruohong took a breath and said, "Who is so cruel? Hanging the little boy here. Hang here?" I raised the oil lamp high again and carefully observed why this little boy was suspended in mid-air. Directly above the cave wall, countless roots spread out. Some of these roots are as thick as an arm, and some are as thin as a hair. And those thick roots seemed to be growing out of the little boy's head, which was extremely weird. I slowly moved the oil lamp in my hand to illuminate other places. Wherever the light reaches, there are corpses of children. There were both boys and girls, and as you looked around, the sheer number of them was mind-numbing. Hiss. When everyone saw this scene, they all took a breath of cold air. Seeing such a strange scene in front of her, Xia11 held my arm tightly and asked with a trembling voice, "Lu Su, what on earth is going on?" I pondered for a moment and said, "These children should be nourished by the big locust tree. As for the purpose of this, I don't know." Wu 11 and others didn't have any clue. I turned to everyone and said, "Let's go, be careful." Everyone nodded in agreement, and I took the lead in holding the oil lamp and walking at the front. There is a lot of space on the cave wall, and the bodies of children are one after another. They were right above us, and I could clearly see their pale little feet and blackened toenails. In order not to touch the bodies of these children, we can only bend forward. Walking, my steps hesitated slightly. Xia11 next to me saw me stopping and asked with some confusion, "What's wrong?" I frowned, looked into the darkness, and asked, "Did you hear anything?" Xia11 was stunned, shook her head and replied, "I didn't listen to anything." Before he finished speaking, a young child's voice rang in everyone's ears. "Don't go in, don't go in." Even if the sound is inaudible, it can still be heard clearly in this quiet environment. Xia11's delicate body trembled and she threw herself into my arms. I reached out and patted her shoulder gently, paying attention to the abnormalities around her. Wu 11 and Ruohong are also facing a formidable enemy. "Don't go in." The child's voice was already slightly crying. "He is praying, begging us not to enter." I took a deep breath and said to the darkness, "Why don't you go in?" The child's voice stopped suddenly and started again a moment later. "It's dangerous inside. As the saying goes, good lies come true. It is impossible for me to have absolute trust in Li Gui. Whether you can trust a fierce ghost needs to be judged." I activated the power of the ghost seal, and instantly, a cold air spread from my body. Xia11 in my arms shuddered subconsciously. The moment the power of ghost appeared, the child hanging by the roots of the big locust tree began to squirm crazily with its small body. "They are afraid. Whatever you know, tell me everything, and I can reincarnate you later." As soon as these words came out, sighs came and went, one after another. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 168. The real Beidongtian festival is impossible to realize. After all, there are no ginseng fruit trees in this world. But this kind of feng shui treasure cave can be created through artificial means. Under the locust tree, hundreds of children's corpses provide nutrients for the big locust tree. This is simply insane. The boy seemed to be lost in memories, and when he spoke, he seemed to be mumbling to himself. "We are all orphans. It was Madame who adopted us and raised us. She is really gentle. In our eyes, she is our mother." The boy let out a long sigh and said, "One day, the alchemist prepared a lot of delicious food for us. After we finished eating, we fell into a coma. Later, I woke up from the pain and saw someone cutting my wrist. After the blood was drained, they opened our skulls with an awl and poured mercury into our skulls." The boy was very calm when he said this, and his mood did not fluctuate much. But when these words fell on my ears, I felt a storm in my heart. "This is too cruel." The boy continued, "After that, we were hung here, and our souls merged with the big locust tree. Ruohong said angrily, "How can there be such a vicious woman in the world?" This sentence instantly caused dissatisfaction among the boys and girls. "You are not allowed to say that, madam." "That's right. Don't say that to madam. Madam doesn't know all this. It's all the fault of that alchemist. Madam will kill the alchemist after learning the truth." Ruohong opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but I interrupted her. I whispered in her ear, "Stop talking, these children are too kind." Ruohong nodded and said nothing more. I can actually understand what these children are thinking. In ancient times, the fate of orphans was very miserable, either starving to death or becoming slaves. Their world is dark, and the appearance of that lady brings color to their dark world. In order to repay madam's kindness, they would rather be turned into this by the alchemist without any regrets, because they knew that this would help madam. I didn't intend to delve further into this topic, so I changed the subject and asked, "What's going on in that village outside?" The boy pondered for a moment and replied, "That village should be the tomb keeper that the alchemist found. I don't know the specific situation." At this time, Wu 11 said on the side, "I seem to understand something." I motioned for Wu 11 to continue. "When I was little, my grandfather once told me that people with paper ties are not necessarily the grave keepers, but those who keep the tomb must be people with paper ties. Each tomb keeper was a living person during his or her lifetime. Generally speaking, they would make a living as paper makers. Until one day, they turned themselves into paper makers and became half yang and half yin, not among the 5 elements of heaven and earth exist. This way you can keep your soul alive and guard this tomb forever." Wu 11's explanation is very reasonable. The truth here is probably this. The matter is almost understood. I said to these boys and girls, "Do you have any other wishes?" They were silent for a while, and then a voice remembered. "We want to see madam again." I listened, sighed, and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I can't help you realize this wish." The boy just now said quickly, "Yes. You can help us make it happen." I was slightly taken aback and asked the boy why he said that. The boy explained to me, "Although the lady has not come to see us, we know that she is in the main tomb. The general's wife is still in the main tomb." "How can this be? Is it possible that the general's wife is still alive?" Looking at these poor children, I really couldn't bear to say no. "Okay, I promise you, if I see her, I will let her come to see you." In an instant, all the children laughed like silver bells. I could hear that their laughter came from the bottom of their hearts. After that, the boy pointed us in the direction of the main tomb and told us about the mechanisms we might encounter on the way. "Sir, please be careful." I waved my hand and said, "Okay, I get it." After that, I led everyone to the main tomb. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 169. On the way to the main tomb, we passed by the ear chamber but did not enter it because our destination was the main tomb and there was no need to waste time elsewhere. The entire tomb is quite old. Based on my knowledge, I cannot tell which dynasty it belongs to. Soon, we came to a stone door. Because of the Mercury boy's warning, there were no big troubles along the way. The boy also told me how to open the stone door. I came to the stone door and opened it according to the method the boy gave me. With a bang, the stone door shook violently and slowly rose. Crash, the dust that had settled for a long time suddenly fell down at this moment, and the entire main tomb passage was filled with smoke and dust. A chill came from the main tomb chamber, and the surrounding temperature instantly dropped several degrees. A few of us looked at each other, and when the smoke dissipated, we walked towards the main tomb. I whispered, "Be careful, there might be something waiting for us ahead. Several people nodded. I was the first to bear the brunt and stepped into the main tomb chamber. The moment we all entered the main tomb, the torch in the main tomb suddenly burned, emitting a dark green light, like a pair of ghost eyes, staring at us. There is something wrong with this main tomb. It was precisely with these strong green lights that I was able to see clearly what was going on inside the tomb. A sarcophagus was placed quietly in the center of the tomb. I took a few steps forward to take a closer look at the sarcophagus. It didn't matter what I saw, it instantly made me break out in a cold sweat. The sarcophagus was actually opened, the lid of the coffin disappeared, and there was nothing in the sarcophagus. The body in the coffin. He actually ran out. Ruo Hung and Wu 11 also stepped forward to check, and looked shocked when they saw the scene in front of them. They looked around cautiously. I don't know why, but a chill spread to my heart, and the surrounding environment became more and more weird. Wu 11 discovered the broken sarcophagus lid not far away. The three of us gathered around the sarcophagus lid. I squatted down, picked up the gravel on the ground, and then looked at the sarcophagus not far away. An idea suddenly appeared in my mind. I exclaimed, "This sarcophagus is not opened from the outside, but from the inside." It was obvious that the broken sarcophagus lid in front of him was smashed from the inside, otherwise it would not have been able to fly so far. I looked around and saw nothing out of the ordinary. I said to Wu 11, "Carry out the sarcophagus. We want to occupy the magpie's nest, and then use the Feng Shui treasure cave of Beitong Tianji to let Qing Yangxing return to the palace." Wu 11 nodded and directed his junior brothers to start carrying the sarcophagus. Just when a few people's hands just touched the sarcophagus, something strange happened. The green flames on the wall were beating wildly, flickering on and off, like candles in the wind, and might be extinguished at any time. Tap tap tap. A dull footstep sounded from the darkness. I subconsciously held Jingxiao in my hand and stared at the direction of the sound. A small white foot stepped out from the darkness, followed by long white and plump legs. On her long legs is a pleated skirt with scattered flowers, water mist, and green grass, and on top is a blue emerald smoke sweater. Then the figure of the man in the darkness was completely revealed. That is a very beautiful woman. The woman's shoulders are cut into a straight waist, her muscles are as fat as blue, and a hollow gold hairpin is inserted obliquely on her head, decorated with purple jade, and sprinkled on the black hair like tassels. When I saw this girl, I immediately guessed her true identity. This is what the boy calls the general's wife. Flower Break. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 170. Unexpectedly, she actually exists here. As if facing a formidable enemy, I quickly protected Xia 11 behind me. Hua Xiu's pale face had no color at all, but her red lips were as red as blood. Her pretty face was covered with frost, and her beautiful eyes were full of murderous aura. She walked towards us step by step, and with every step she took, I could clearly feel the frightening yin energy coming from Hua Xiu. This beautiful woman in front of me is very powerful. More penetrating than all the ghosts I've encountered before. Hua Xiu opened her red lips and slowly uttered 4 words. "You deserve to die." Before we could react, Hua Xiu's figure flashed and disappeared in an instant, followed by a powerful yin energy. When I reacted, Hua Xiu was already in front of me. She suddenly stretched out her slender arm and slapped me with her palm. My expression condensed and I quickly used Jingxiao to block. Boom! Jingxiao and Huaxiu's palms collided, making a huge sound. I was beaten so hard that I stepped back, and the hand holding Jingxiao kept shaking. Prick, prick, prick. The sound was like raw meat being grilled on a red-hot iron plate. I distanced myself from Hua Xiu and stared at her, fearing that she would suddenly get angry. It was at this time that I suddenly noticed Hua Xiu's palm. Her palm was actually injured by Jingxiao, revealing a large area of flesh and blood. However, the wound is healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Huashiu's face was expressionless, his beautiful eyes filled with murderous intent. "You'll be damned if you wait." As soon as he finished speaking, Huashiu disappeared from the spot again. Her speed was so fast that it was impossible to catch it with the naked eye. I actually lost my target for a moment. "Lucio." "Right." Wu 11 yelled at me. I raised the Jingxiao and placed it on my right side. There was another loud noise, and I was blown away directly. I only felt my body rolling a few times in the air, and then landed heavily. Before I could react, a strong coldness hit me. I raised my eyes, and what caught my eye was a small, white jade foot. The next moment, I felt my abdomen being kicked hard, and then an endless feeling of weightlessness came towards me. I rolled several times and hit the wall hard. I only felt a sweet sensation in my throat, and a mouthful of blood spurted out instantly. Ruohong quickly ran to my side, helped me up, and asked with concern, "Lucio, how are you?" I shook my head, spit out the blood in my mouth, and said, "It's okay, I can't die." I looked at Huashiu, and she was already fighting with Wu 11. Wu 11's offensive was fierce and his moves were deadly, while Huashiu crushed Wu 11 with her absolute strength. But Wu 11 retreated 3 times with one move and looked forward and backward. As a result, Huashiu could not kill Wu 11 immediately. Ruohong took a breath of cold air and said in disbelief, "I didn't expect Wu 11, a sissy, to have 2 brushes." I hold Jingxiao in my right hand and place it in front of me. I hold the seal of the 9-level Thunder Ju in my left hand. I silently recite the spell in my heart and activate the 9-level Thunder Ju. In an instant, lightning flashed in my left hand, and I turned the seal into a sword formula, and then pointed the sword towards Jingxiao. All the power of the first level of the 9 levels of Thunder Ju was gathered in the Jingxiao. I held Jingxiao and joined the battle. Ruohong did not dare to neglect and quickly followed behind me. I raised the Jingxiao in my hand and struck it at Huashiu. But Huashiu dodged as if there were eyes behind him. It was just when this blow failed that Ruohong's long whip roared towards him. Huashiu stretched out his slender arms and grasped Ruohong's long whip firmly in his hand. Wu 11 also took advantage of this gap and punched Huashiu in the head. Huashiu didn't even hide, and let Wu 11's fist hit her pretty face. Bang! Wu 11 roared and distanced himself from Huashiu. Ruohong and I also jumped a step back to keep our distance from Huashiu.